And welcome to Heart and Hand, the Rangers podcast. My name is David Edgar. I am your host as always, and I'm joined this week by the pride of Linwood. It's David Marshall.
How you doing, mate? I can't believe we've still got another one of these to do. When does it end?
It ends on Saturday.
Oh, thank God.
Is when it ends, yes. I'd love to get to the end of the season. I'm not desperate to get to the summer.
I know.
There's a target for next season, Rangers. But unfortunately, once the league had gone, then the rest of the games become a bit of a contractual obligation, and that was the case on Saturday as Rangers headed through to Tynecastle to take on Hearts. It felt like an end-of-season game, Dave. I thought watching it, I thought both teams went for it enough, but it can't have the intensity, can it? When neither team can go up or down, it's going to have an end of season feel to it. And Rangers, of course, had the cup final the next week, and with the best will in the world, that is much more important.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. For what it was, I think if you're looking at it from a neutral point of view, I don't think it was a bad game, but it certainly did have a feel of one team who was looking to this one last season, saving grace of their season, and another who'd already achieved what they wanted to achieve from this season and were looking forward to getting onto the beach. I thought it was, fine. I think we've mentioned before, like, I quite look forward to the games against Hearts and Hibs because they seem to be the only two teams in the league where we actually play decent football because the way those two teams play allow us to play. But yeah, it was, I mean, from the result and everything else, it was very much that, last day of school, let's get home alone, stuck in the telly and get home.
Yeah, I was slightly surprised that the manager didn't maybe play some more youngsters in the side. I'd have liked to have seen Cole McKinnon, for example, come in. Yeah. Robbie Fraser did come in and did fine. Incidentally, he wasn't the reason we drew, it was when he went off. And the manager did say that he made the changes in the second half less to do with this game than to do with next week's, which is fair enough. But I think that the issue as a Rangers fan watching it was it just felt like a perfect microcosm of our season. I mean, if you wanted the Rangers experience in 23-24 distilled into one match, this was almost perfect for it. It had the lot. Penalty denied, that's a Stonewaller. Then Rangers miss a couple of excellent chances. You're expecting a nonsense to lead to the opening goal for Hearts, and boom, sure as fate, along comes that nonsense. Second half, Rangers rally, play some really good stuff, actually, to be fair, establish a 3-1 lead, and then complacency, switching off at the back, two more rubbish goals to concede, and that's your dinner. So it really just felt to me like we were getting pretty much everything in this almost perfect distillation of what we've watched all year.
Yeah, I would find that hard to disagree with. There was a lot of, as you say, a microcosm of the season, the 190 minutes. You could watch that game and understand why this year has turned out the way it has for us. I mean, I think the Dessers chance in the first half is the one that immediately stands out, doesn't it? It's laid on a plate for him. He's got a big portion of the goal to hit, and he hits it right at the goalkeeper. How many times have we seen something like that this year?
Yeah, and this has been the thing with Dessers all season, that he does score goals, but he does miss a lot of chances and a lot of fairly obvious ones at times. I mean, that for me is, it's not a great ball by Ross McCausland, to be fair, right? One of my pet peeves about this Rangers team is that we continually pass the ball slightly behind a player, even in build-up, and the player has to go back and get it and turn, and you waste valuable seconds rather than playing it that the guy can just take it and start moving and look forward. And it is a flaw. It does happen a lot in Scottish football in general, and maybe that's the difference because you watch, the higher leagues, and it just doesn't. Do you know what I mean? They pass to the person's correct foot and facing forward, and maybe that is the difference between elite players and players in their league. But even so, we should be better at it than we are. But even so, it's just roll it into the open corner. That's all you need to do. And again, it's that slight panic. He can look flustered. He had a very bad day, Dessers. It was one of those days where nothing was going to go right for him, and he had chances. He screwed a really good one in the second half, past the post as well. Then the goal when we concede it. Todd Cantwell dawdling in the middle of the park. And again, and this is for me the worry ahead of next week, is the defence isn't set at all.
No.
There's a huge gap. Shankland exploits it. Lovely finish from him. And I think, of course, because of the narrative of this season, there's going to be the contrast between, Dessers and Shankland, where he gets a chance and he scores, he gets a chance and he misses. And it's hard to avoid doing that. But for me, that this was indicative of goals Rangers have been losing recently, and the setup is just completely wrong. Now, I do get the argument that was put forward to me by somebody that, well, the defence isn't expecting Cantwell to lose it there. My point is, given what they've watched, shouldn't they be?
Yes,
yeah.
Exactly. We've lost a lot of goals like that in the last couple of months where, you're watching it at the time and you're just thinking, where are we here? It's a situation that we shouldn't be getting into. I remember there was one early in the season, I can't remember who it was against now, but where Cantwell lost the ball but 10 yards outside the opposition's box, and that led to a goal. And I defended him at that point because I said, well, a player like that, who you want to be a flair player, should be able to lose the ball in that area and not have it immediately lead to a goal when he's trying something. That there is, that's just poor play from Cantwell. You need to be better when you're in that area of the park, because that is a dangerous area. That's where teams can hit you quick and hurt you. But even so, as you say, the defence, it's a difficult thing that we're asking from them here, because basically what we're asking them is to be alert and on it for 90 minutes, because you never know what's going to happen in front of you. But that's what we need at the moment, because we've seen the fragileness in front of them, and the amount of times that opposition midfields are just running through us, and we seem so disorganised in the middle. So I do have a bit of sympathy for the defence, because it's a tough gig at the moment.
Yeah, I have a little bit of sympathy for Leon King, because he hasn't played, right? And he's been playing on the rare occasions that the B team seem to play. He's been playing as a midfielder.
Yes.
And he's called in, and again, it's not even next to the senior central defender. It's next to Davis, who's come back in from months out. And he's pitched in. And again, this is kind of looks towards a failure of what we've been doing. There is absolutely no point in keeping a youngster to throw him in occasionally where he will look miles out of his depth, which is what's happening with King. A good point was made about Lewis Mayo at Kilmarnock. Lewis Mayo has played 100 games. Now, he's made some mistakes in those times because he's been learning his craft. He's been learning how to be a central defender. And he has learned because he's a good player. With Leon King, we don't know. Now, any time that Leon King's been in the first team, it's been difficult circumstances, but we do have to say he hasn't played well. But equally, should he not have been on loan, playing these 30, 40 games to build up an experience? And while on the one hand, I don't think he's good enough, the other argument that could be put forward that I think is fair is, well, we haven't given him the opportunity the best way to prove that he could be.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think we need to have a serious look now, really going forward. What are we doing with this academy? Because I don't think we were getting what we hoped we would out of the B team playing in the Lowland League, but I think what we've got now of them playing, friendlies and the occasional cup games, I just don't see how that's going to help any young players' development, and I don't see how it makes Rangers an attractive proposition to the best young talent out there either. Come to Rangers and play 6 or 7 competitive games over the course of a season. No player at any age wants to do that. You want to play competitive football. We really, for the guys that we think have a chance of either making it into the team or that we can get a good fee from somewhere down the line, we need to start thinking of solid plans for these guys and getting them out there and getting the football they need under their belts, because at the moment we're not able to provide it for whatever reason.
No, and we're not. And like I say, then you get them chucked in. There is that counterpoint of you need to take your opportunity when it's there, and he hasn't, right? And if you look at, say, McCausland came into a tricky situation earlier in the season and did that. So it can be two things at once. So it could be that King isn't good enough to make it with us, but also that even so, we still haven't given him the best opportunity to do it. I don't think those two thoughts are mutually exclusive.
I would say for using the McCausland example as well, I think that's an exemption to the usual rule. If the idea that so I think if that's our expectation for young players, I think that's too high a bar to set, and one in every 100 is going to going to meet that. So I don't think that's really fair or realistic. I think there's serious rethinking needing on our youth strategy at the club.
Yeah, I think you introduce them at better times as well, rather than just, by the way, everything is on fire at the moment. Good luck.
Exactly. Because it didn't come into the team because things were going well,
No, exactly. And, the manager has spoke about, well, he hardly trained with the squad last year. That is the year before, sorry, that is a problem that he is changing. But we still need to see a little bit more, I think, in terms of it doesn't always have to be, right, everything is broken, 19, 13 players are injured, and that's when they get an opportunity.
Yep.
So we're a goal down. The aforementioned Ross McCausland in the second half. Rangers do reset and come out. And for the second time in a week, I was really impressed by Ross McCausland making something happen on his own. Both his goals this week were Ross McCausland making something happen on his own. Not looking to others, not waiting for a senior player or whatever to go and do it himself. And his goal was an absolute peach.
That was a beautiful goal, wasn't it? I think I love seeing these type of goals. When a player just does all the work himself.
Give me the ball. I want the ball.
I'm going to do something here. When I was growing up, Barry was my hero because he was the kind of player that grabbed games by the scruff of the neck, going right. That enough of this nonsense. Let's get this done. And I love seeing those type of goals. Pissing myself laughing at the Hearts player falling down, holding his face, and realising that it was nowhere near his face and getting himself back up. But brilliant play by Ross McCausland, and even ignoring the stuff before it, even just the strike itself, it's a great bit of play by him.
Yeah, the manager made the point that he was doing well, and then he kind of had a dip that young players do, but then he was out injured because, as the manager put it, he was kicked off the park, and it's taken him a wee while to get back into it. But I think you're seeing with Ross McCausland what happens with a young player when they're getting games. There usually is a dip, by the way, when a young player, because teams have had a look at him. He's not an unknown prospect anymore. Let's face it, we play each other in the Scottish League about 300 times a year, so teams get to know the opposition players. But I'll hang on about this, but bravery in football to me isn't smashing somebody in the face in front of the referee and getting a red card. Bravery to me is, we're getting beat, I want the ball, give me the ball. And it's not an age thing either, because you just mentioned Barry was like that at 18. Just give me the ball. And I like that both times. Ross McCausland, we're losing the game, he goes and he makes something happen. And after that, as we've seen so often with this Rangers team, once they get a bit of confidence up, some lovely football. Todd Cantwell with a second goal, and Rangers are flying at this point. Fabio Silva adds a third, a terrific goal. And, we're playing pretty well, and you're kind of thinking, right, this is fine, nice way to sign off the season. The manager then makes changes. He puts on Yilmaz and he takes off Ben Davis and puts on Sterling to try and get the minutes. And of course, we lose a couple of goals. But the first one comes down the right-hand side, something that we've said a lot and said far too often recently. And the frustrating thing about it was when the ball went out, Tavernier's nowhere near the guy. He doesn't get close. He doesn't affect the play. The cross comes in. Same thing happened at Parkhead. Happened again here. Now, the debate about James Tavernier has been interminable, and I think at times a little bit dull. Because I think that there were people who just made up their mind about him, and that was that, and then looked for evidence. Either way, some people, he couldn't do anything right, and for others, he couldn't do anything wrong. Whereas I've always said, Tav, never been a great defender. However, he has been worth more than the defensive stuff in terms of what he's created for Rangers at times over the years. But for whatever reason, he has lost a yard in the last 6 months particularly. It's been very noticeable in the last few weeks. Now, someone on Twitter sent me a thing, and it was a very good point. And he said, Tav's played 170 games in the past 3 seasons. and it's more than pretty much any of his contemporaries. As I get older, Dave, I begin to think that with footballers, it's less about age and more about miles on the clock. I think it's like a car, right? And I think that that's what saps you. And it's not just with us. If you look at guys like, I think Torres and Rooney, guys who started playing when they were 16, 17, and by the time they came to 30, they just weren't the same because they played so much football. Similarly, Davy Weir, who didn't start playing professionally till he was 23, ends up playing until he's 41. So I think for me it's that, and it is a real concern because Tav was never a watertight defender, but recently teams are attacking him, and the reason that they're doing it is they're getting joy.
Yeah, I was I'd say I'd always sit in the side of the fence which defends Tavernier, because looking at it from a plus and minus point of view, do we benefit more from having Tavernier on the pitch than we would from having it off it? And for years, I'd categorically say yes, we have. I'd say, even if you were to ask me last year, I'd say the major downside of Tavernier is how much we rely on him so heavily. I'd still that say the same this year, but he's not had a great season. He's lost that yard of pace. He's not been getting the same type of numbers that he's had for the last few years, which is understandable because the numbers he's getting have been incredible. So when that side of it goes, then you go back to the fundamentals of what a right back is, and yeah, it's not looking great. And if anything, it's getting worse. I think the idea that he's played so much football in the last few years, I totally agree with that. I think when you're getting to the wrong side of 30, that body clock's only going to go one way, Davey, and I think it's totally understandable why we are seeing that decline now. And the problem is when the decline starts and your body starts to go, it's very rarely a slow decline. It's, as we see with McGregor, it's cliff levels of decline usually happens.
That's my worry with Tavernier, and I don't want to watch that the way that we had to watch it with McGregor. I really don't. And I suppose the question is this a temporary thing because end of a long season and it's the body's just not responding, or is it now this is what he is? Realistically, that is what happens with players. They don't just stay at the same level then retire. Well, Luka Modric does, but I think he might be the exception rather than the rule.
He's
in that
a
regard.
Freak. Yep.
He is, most players, they start off, they reach a peak sort of late 20s and then they start to go down the way. It doesn't mean they're not still good players, it's just they're not what they were. And in Tav's case, that's the worry. The other fullback doesn't cover himself in glory at this either. Standing watching his man, as is Silva.
Mm-hmm.
And nice finish, and Hearts are back in it. The third goal is a good goal from Hearts' point of view. For me, it's you don't win the initial header. That's the thing.
Yep.
If you don't win the initial header, or at least make sure he can't win it cleanly, then you're in bother. All right, it's a lovely finish, and it can happen. But it's the basic. It's not doing it. I do accept we'd made the changes there with a view to next week, but it just felt like it wasn't the end of the world. I don't think anybody was had that it was the same as losing at Parkhead or anything.
No.
But it just felt like, of course, because that's the sort of narrative mood that's locked around the club at the moment. And going into a cup final, that would have been nice to just get the victory, move in and be ready to go. Not that it'll affect what happens on the day, etc. It just might have been nice in terms of the mood. And I think that this is the issue. The manager spoke on the Friday, Dave, about making changes. He spoke about the team being at an end of a cycle. I think most of us have agreed with that for a while. But I think that the issue when we're looking ahead to this game is Rocky is fictional. Teams that have been knocked into the canvas tend not to pick themselves back up in the last round and come out swinging and win it. They tend to just get battered some more and the fight ends. And that's the concern for Rangers fans going into to Saturday. Now, it's a cup final against Celtic. The fans will be there. It'll be noisy. The battle fever will kick in later in the week. But it's understandable that a lot of fans are looking at it and saying, well, based on past evidence of what we've seen recently, what have we got to expect that will be different? And the manager selection for me will be very, very important in this, because you're looking at maybe, does he bring Lundstrom back in? If he does, what kind of signal does that send? Who will we have available at centre back? There are a lot of issues going into this match, and I think what we are hoping for is that guys produce something out of nowhere that they simply haven't been producing for the best part of 2 months.
Some laugh in it. Yeah, I mean, there's no switch that you can press and then all these problems magically go away, and all the evidence that we've seen this year, vanishes, and we turn up at Hampden at the weekend and run over Celtic. I really can't see it, to be honest. I'm quite pessimistic going into the weekend because of what I've seen. I don't believe this team can get a result against Celtic in a big game until they show that they can. I think going into this game, there's too many questions hanging over selection, and again, just try to cobble a team together. If the team sheets come out on Saturday and I see John Lundstrom's name on it, then I'll be reaching for the nearest bottle of bleach to down immediately. He can't do that. I think if the manager does that, then all he's doing there is, setting himself up for a fall and putting all the flack, if that game goes south, onto himself. I think I'd say it's an easy decision for him. Just don't pick him. Do yourself a favour and just don't pick him. And everything else in the team, it's just wait and see. I'd love to sit here and say I'm confident, but outside of blind belief and battle fever and no surrender, it's going to be difficult.
It's going to be very difficult. They're a side that are confident, playing well, and have a great recent record against us, so they've every right. They will be the favourites. They should be, unfortunately. But what you need to do, I think, as a team approaching this, there are certain things that have to change. Firstly, we have to score first. That, I think, is just non-negotiable, because that's been proven. If the pattern remains the same of Rangers concede a goal, then immediately concede a second, which is something we've done far, far too often, then I think we'd all go, right, we'll probably pull one back and it'll not be enough. And the reason that we'll think that is we've seen that repeatedly. And we need to flip the script in some way. There are also a number of basics that I don't think the team's been doing. We've conceded 5 goals in 2 matches towards the end of the season, and it's been basics. It's been not tracking runners. It's been not blocking crosses. It's been losing men in the box. It's been giving the ball away in dangerous areas and not being set in behind it. And these are all things that shouldn't be happening. They are, but they shouldn't be. Because these are things that are in your control, right? If someone beats 2 players and does what Ross McCausland does, not a hell of a lot you can do about that, right? I think we all accept that. But when you're seeing people waltzing unchallenged into your box because you've gave the ball away inside your own half under no pressure, and then there's nobody following the guys running in, or a ball's delivered to the back post and the full-back and the winger are dreaming with nobody paying attention to the offensive players.
Or giving the opposition the same chance 4 times before they score it.
Yeah, exactly. Not learning lessons, not plugging gaps. These have been recurrent issues. These are not issues, Dave, that are going to change without the personnel changing. Now, as I say, the manager spoke about it. He said, end of a cycle, that was the phrase used. We are coming to new players. We'll need to get new players in. For me, the type of players that we bring in are important. What Rangers, I think, need to do this summer is target younger, faster players, because I think we're a slow team. I look at the side and I don't see a lot of pace in it, and I think that's a problem. I don't just mean incidentally guys like, say, Matondo, who are like rockets. I mean guys who play football quickly, who move the ball quickly, who don't take 6 or 7 extra touches throughout a move, because you do that and it kills you. It's about getting the ball where it needs to go quickly, repeatedly, going and being able to play at a high tempo for 90 minutes, which we lack. Then I think that we need a new leadership group, for the simple reason is that the old one has been proven ineffective, or at least the leadership that it has provided has not been able to get us to where we need to go. So when something isn't working, I don't think blindly continuing to go at at it in the hope that it will, especially, as we say in football, where each year can radically alter the output of an individual player. So then what you need to do, I think, is go on and make sure that you're getting in, new leaders, guys who are unfazed by previous, if you like, don't have that same amount of crosses against them. And I think also just from a fan's point of view, we need it because we need a fresh start, not a kind of fresh start, not a graft of what Beale tried last year, which was sort of grafting some new players onto the existing structure. The existing structure doesn't work for what we need it to do. Therefore, you have to change that structure. And if you don't, then you're going to keep running into the same issues. And that, to me, is, I think, the frustration and the disconnect with fans, is that it's the same all the time and nothing changes. And until it changes, I think that there will be this thing in the back of fans' mind saying, well, this is what's going to happen, because it always does. That is a cycle you can only break by completely changing it.
Yeah, I want to see, in terms of recruitment this year, I want to see something different than what we've been getting the last few years. I've speak to a lot of people offline and in person, and the amount of people that have said to me, I don't want to see any more jobbers from the championship coming up here. And there's a part of me, it's like, well, just because such and such doesn't work out, it's a bit silly to write off an entire league. But I kind of agree, to be honest. I want us to see something different. Like, what's our actual scouting plan? Who are the type of players that we're targeting, and where are we? Like I seen on Twitter the day, like we're possibly signing that central defender from Panama. It's different, So I want to see something that's just changes what we've been doing the last few years, because it isn't working. It's going to be a huge summer for us. I'm still honestly a wee bit worried and wary about it, because I think we will still see knock-on effects from the previous summer going into this summer. But yeah, it's going to be huge, and it's a tough job that Clement and whoever else is doing the recruitment's got.
Yeah, I think that for me, that what they need to do, what they need to focus on if you're company is, first of all, it is unlikely that it's all going to be fixed in one window. Okay, that's the reality of it. But you've got to at least give the fans something to see progress. This is another thing that I think fans will be patient if they can see where we're going and how we intend to get there. And there's been precious little of that the last 3 years. It's why Gerrard survived, because enough people could see what he was trying to do. And of course, it still took some strange circumstances for it to come to fruition, but it did come to fruition. I think that with the current thing, the last couple of years, what Rangers have done a lot, and this is a mistake that clubs make, Manchester United have made it in particular, that you sign guys that you think are good players, but there's no overall plan about how they're going to be used. And then you end up changing managers a fair bit, and you end up with this hodgepodge of a squad that's been built by 3 or 4 different people, and you're trying to just fit these composite pieces together and hoping that it will provide something. I think we've been very guilty of that. Whereas what you need to do is sit down and say, this is the overarching plan. We need players. We're going to play this way. And we need players, therefore, who can do this. And that's what you sign. And it means that if player X comes along, who's a very good player, but not right for what you want to do, you don't sign him.
Yes.
You don't go, well, he's a good player and he's available. We have done that.
Aaron Ramsey.
And whether they've worked out or not isn't really relevant to the main point. The main point is, were they signed with a specific idea in place? And that, to me, is why you look at a team that is slow, that has some talented footballers in it, guys that are good with ball at feet. But that meant that the plan has just evolved far, far too often to Tav will do something, Cantwell will do something. Hopefully, Cholak or Dessers will get a goal. It's all about an individual, and there's been no, what do we do as a collective that gets us goals? And to be fair, I did see that the first couple of months under Clement. I think he was badly hampered by losing his wide players. And I think that the signings that he went for, obviously it didn't work out. Cortez got injured, Silva hasn't done it. That at least I saw, right, okay, I see what you're moving towards. And that's what I want to see next season. I want to see guys coming in where I go, this is the plan. This is clearly what he wants to do. It may take a wee while to get it to fully functioning, but I'm prepared to give that time if I can see that. If it is just, here's a bunch of players and we're going to try and randomly fit them all together and hope that they do enough. They probably will do enough in 90% of the games because they're better than the opposition, but it's the big games that they won't, and that's what's costing us.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, you look at going into this season, and within the first couple of games, you'd be hard to see what we were trying to do, and then the manager seemed to completely change that again. No, he himself didn't seem like he had a clue, which would be, that's not particularly shocking to anyone who watched his team.
We changed formation 4 times in the first match this season against Celtic. That's not a manager who knows what he's doing.
No. I think as well, what we need is communication from the club and to talk to us like adults. Like if next season is going to be a rebuilding season, then I think tell us that. I mean, don't come out and say like, well, listen, it's going to be a rebuild season, so we're just going to hand the title to Celtic. But there's a way to do it. Set the fans' expectations. Talk to us like adults. Let us know where we are and where we plan to be and how we're going to achieve that and why that starts now.
Yeah, and look, this is a pet peeve of mine with any football club, but particularly with us recently, is that I think clubs are too worried about what the very loud, very small minority say, and they just decide not to say anything because then it can't be held against them. Whereas I think the vast majority of supporters, I think the vast majority of people listening to this are grown-ups. They understand, might not like, the medicine, but they understand why it needs to be taken and what the outcome is. Whereas I think if you're going to do it because, anonymous account on Twitter is going to rage, well, of course they're going to rage. That's what they exist to do. That's, performative trope is about who can be the most angry and who can be the most loud and who can hate, the most fervently. You have to ignore those and you have to go, right, we need to build for the fans who are sensible, impatient, understandably, given what we've watched, but are intelligent. And that's the vast, vast majority of Rangers supporters.
Yep.
And those are the ones that you need to, as you say, come out and say, look, realistically, we've lost 3 years through bad decisions. Since winning the title, we are 3 years. We could have been 3 years further ahead. We're not. We're starting again from the same position, maybe actually slightly backwards. I would argue that this squad is worse than last season's was because we've made errors. And you hold your hands up to them and you say, we are trying to fix them and this is the plan that we want to do. But again, you need to show evidence of that. And that's why things like getting rid of the leadership group, making sure that big changes are coming, you have to demonstrate it, because if you try some sleight of hand to say, oh, actually, it's totally different, but the fans can see it's business as usual, again, the sensible majority will go, nah, this is just business as usual, and it'll fail. So I do think there needs to be a reconsideration of how people at the club addresses the supporters. Treat them like grown-ups and you'll get a grown-up response. If you're continually treating them like children, don't be upset when people are just angry, because nobody likes to be patronised. And I think that is something, as you say, you don't come out in the summer and say, by the way, we're not going to win the league this year, because we might, but you say, we're going to progress this year. We're going to get better. We're going to play good football that you'll enjoy watching. Now, there might be some disappointments and some learning curves, but we'll come through those and we'll come through them together. But you're going to see you're a big part of this journey that we're on, but we're on it at last rather than stalled in the fucking sidings where we've been for 3 years.
No, I totally agree with that. And if you compared it to Gerrard's time, there was a lot of disappointment under Gerrard. There was a lot of hills that we took our time to get over. The collapses after New Year. But in every Gerrard season, there was boxes that were needed to be ticked, that were ticked. Beating Celtic, then beating Celtic at Parkhead, these kind of things, progressing in Europe. The boxes were ticked. You could see the progression. There's been no progression the last few years. We have regressed since we won the title. I don't think that's even up for any kind of discussion. We need to see progress going next season. We need to hear from the club, and we need to find out what the plan is to get us where we want to be and how we're going to get there.
Yeah, and I think Bennett needs to come out and address the fans. I think that basically ever since that disastrous interview he did in 2022, he's just thought, no, I'm not doing it. But he needs to. It's part of the job.
If you can't talk to the Rangers support, you shouldn't be the chairman or
Correct.
head of the board, whatever it is.
Yeah, because that is a place where you need to come out and do it. And I think you need to be honest and not try and tell people that what we've been watching isn't what we've been watching.
Yes.
Because it doesn't work, right? Nobody is fooled. It just builds anger and hostility. Come out, be honest, and say, look, we got things wrong. Here's what we're doing to fix it. We don't expect, and here's the negotiation that we're at on this player with this agent, and we're paying him that. Well, some people do, but most of us get it. And then let's see evidence of it. And just take the support along with you, rather than having this thing at the moment where the fans feel that, that there's no communication, which is pointless and a waste of time. And just be honest with it. And if you do that, I think you will get the rewards. I never subscribe to this stuff. I know people like to say it at the end of seasons that are disappointing, and I get why traditional media do it. But it'll take 5 years. It won't take 5 years. Football isn't like that.
Right? A lot can change in the summer.
A lot can change inside a calendar year. Absolutely right. It's Scotland, so should you be capable of putting a Rangers team with a budget that beats everybody else in the league bar Celtic? Yes. And should you be capable of putting out a Rangers team that can beat Celtic? Maybe not every time, but a lot fucking more than it does. Yes. And therefore you should be in the running for a title. So that to me is a very achievable goal. Now, it might take more than one window, as I've said, to perfect it, to get it to absolutely where it should go, but it should be more competitive than it has been.
I don't think that's unfair at all. It's because you're never that far away in Scotland. Like, again, if you want to go back to the last title we won, going into that summer, I wasn't optimistic that we were going to win the league next year and stop Celtic winning 10 in a row. But we did. Things clicked. We got the recruitment right. They had a regression, which of course helped, and things clicked for us, and we won the league. You're never that far away. As I said, I think it's fair to say I've been pretty pessimistic throughout talking about it, but it's not. It's going to take a lot, but it's not impossible.
No, nowhere near it. You are not trying to overtake Manchester City.
Exactly.
This is the thing. You just need to get better. The fact is, Rangers are
barring financial fair play, I'm starting to think that might actually be impossible. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but the last, I think you might be right. It's well, Pep's there certainly, but Rangers should have won the league this year, right?
Correct. Yep.
We didn't because of previous mistakes that we'd made and things like.
Sorry, I'll go further as well. We should have won it in Postecoglou's first year as well.
Oh, absolutely. Right. We didn't because of mistakes we made, things that were controllable, recruitment, right? I don't subscribe to that. I don't expect every transfer to be a success, but I don't subscribe to this idea that every single one of them is just a shot in the dark.
Yes.
And it might work and it might not. I don't believe that. If it is, then why are we paying people to do it? Just give me and you the phone book and we'll go through it and phone players if that's how random that it is. As I say, it's we're not in a good spot at the moment. I don't think any Rangers fan is fooled by that, but we could be in a far better one with correct decisions. The problem is we haven't made enough of them recently. But anyway, folks, the important thing, of course, is to win on Saturday. Just fucking win, right?
Yes,
don't
please.
care how you manage it. Just get over the line and get us the victory and win us the cup by hook or by crook, and send us at least into the summer a wee bit happy. Cammy will be here later in the week with Heart and Hand Extra. He'll preview the cup final, and I'll be back here next Monday with our last match day episode of the season. We'll have a kind of end of season one wrap up afterwards as well, and then we head into the summer. My thanks to our producers Mike Lee and Paul Myers, and my thanks to the wonderful David Marshall.
Oh, pleasure as always, mate.
Thanks very much for joining us, folks, and I'll talk to you again in 7 days. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.